Today we learn about a concept called as labor turnover. This is a concept. It says in a specified period, what is the change in labor force? For example, beginning of the year there were few employees. At the end of the year, some of the people joined, some people left, some people were sent home. So when we consider all of this, we get a we get a term called as labor turnover. It says how fast the change of labor happening in the work. So we'll understand it through four different methods. They are addition method, separation method, replacement method and flux method. It is very easy to solve this. If you look at the formula, everywhere the denominator is the same, which is average workers during the period. So how do you calculate average workers during a period? So at the beginning of the year there was X, at the end of the year there was X2. So average is X1 plus X2 divided by 2. So this will give you average number of workers. And when we take the different methods, in the addition method you have number of labors added. In the separation method you have number of labors separated. Separation means leaving the organization. In case of replacement method, it is the number of people replaced. For example, 10 people joined the company but 5 people left the company. That means out of 10 people who have joined, only 5 were replaced. So hence in the replacement method, in the numerator you will consider 5. And there is flux method which uses both addition and separation. So it is half of number of additions plus number of separation divided by average number of workers during the period. To understand it better, we will solve a problem. When you look at a problem, you have to look at the data very carefully. We'll go through this. ABC Limited is having 400 workers at the beginning of the year. So this is important. And 500 workers at the end of the year. So that means you have to calculate average workers like how you learned at the beginning of the year 400 plus at the end of the year 500 divided by 2, you will get 450. So this is your average. During the year, 20 workers from discharged. Discharge means they were separated. 15 workers left the organization. Again, it's a separation case. During the year, company has recruited 65 workers. This is addition. Of these, 18 workers were recruited in the vacancies of those leaving. So that means this is replacement. While the rest were engaged for an expansion scheme. What is the labor turnover rate under separation? So how many people were separated? 20 workers were discharged and 15 workers left the organization. That means total separation was 20 plus 15, that is 35. And in the denominator you have average workforce, which is 450. So if you calculate this ratio into percentage, you will get 8%. Suppose the question asked calculate labor turnover using some other method. For example, let's take addition method. So labor turnover using addition, how many people were added? Totally 65 workers were added. So we will consider that. And average remains same, 450. That will give you an answer of 14.4%. Let us see another simple problem. Here it is very important to note down the data. Once you understand what data is given and what they are asking, it is very easy to solve this problem. During October 2015, following information etc. is given. Labor force at the beginning, this is important, and end of the month, this is also important. During the month, 25 people left while 40 persons were discharged. 218 workers were engaged, out of which only 30 were appointed in vacancy. That means 280 workers joined addition. Out of that, 30 accounted for replacement. So calculate labor turnover by different method. Very easy. So let's start with addition method. How many people were added? So totally 280 workers were added, divided by average. Average is 1900 plus 2100 by 2, which is 2000. So 280 by 2000 will give you this. Next you have labor turnover by separation. Total separation was 25 plus 40 divided by 2000. Next, labor turnover based on replacement. Totally 30 were replaced. So 30 divided by 2000. If you want to calculate flux method, you have to take half of addition and half of subtraction. So labor turnover by flux method would be half of addition is 280 plus separation is 65 and denominator you have 2000. Next we learn about employee cost reporting. This is basically what the standard of employee cost requires. So it says in the cost statement, employee cost will be presented as a separate head. So this you will understand when we go to the cost ascertainment chapter and when we are preparing the cost sheet. Then what next point it says, indirect employee cost will be presented as part of separate overheads. That means in the cost sheet, wherever you are mentioning different overheads, under each overhead, the indirect employee cost of that particular function has to be presented. For example, if you take factory overhead, so here you will have material, then you will have labor. Similarly, administration overhead, you will have to mention labor separately. So that is the meaning of this sentence. Category wise detail of the employee cost has to be furnished in cost sheet. So that means in factory overhead under labor, you have to mention what is the wages or salary, then what is the benefit cost. So this kind of breakup has to be reported. This is very important when you go for practicing cost accountancy and you are required to verify the cost sheet. All this has to be checked. In this same chapter, I'll also cover some portion of direct expense because it is not very vast. It is easy to go through this. What is direct expense? It is any expenses which is not a material or labor. So that means it is mostly a third party service. It can be linked directly with a cost object. So that means it's a direct. Examples are cost of patent, royalty. So these are all directly linked with the product. If I have taken a royalty for, let's say, a car engine, and as I manufacture one car engine, per unit I have to pay so much royalty. So it is directly linked. Higher charges in respect of special machinery, cost of special pattern, core, design or tools. What are these? So if you are a mechanical engineer, you will understand. Whenever a metal part has to be casted, so they make some special patterns where they pour the molten metal. So they are called pattern and cores. Since it is directly related to that product, it is a direct expense. Experimental cost and expenditure in connection with model and pilot schemes, fee of architect, surveyor, etc., traveling expense to site, inward charges, all these are direct expenses. General principle of measurement. So this is as per your cost accounting standard 10. If you get a question, explain direct expense as per CAS 10, these are the important points you should be able to say. One is identification. That is why it is direct. Traceability in an economically feasible manner. Also, what it says, whatever direct expenses incurred, how do you calculate? Invoice price plus all taxes and duties, where you do not get any refund of those taxes and duties. Third is direct expenses paid in lump sum. It's also called as non-recurring engineering charges shall be amortized. If I given, let's say, 10 lakh as a service charge and benefit is over 5 years, every year I will amortize 2 lakh as a direct expense. What are excluded? Very important. Finance cost always excluded. Subsidy or grant, that means you are getting a grant from the government, some portion is reimbursed. Penalty, damages, so these are abnormal, hence this is going to your costing P&L. This will never be part of your cost. Abnormal portion of direct expense. So that's all in direct expense. In case if you get a question on this, you should be able to identify which of the costs given are direct based on these category and calculate and total it saying this is the direct expense. In the next class, we will cover overheads.